I didn't sign up for this crap, Commander Mack Reynolds muttered, squinting at the purple-tinged horizon of planet X-17. The third sun was rising, which meant it was approximately 0600 hours, Earth Standard Time. Not that Earth Standard meant squat on this backwater rock. Outpost 42 wasn't exactly the prestigious assignment Mack had envisioned when he joined the Interstellar Scientific Corps. A prefab habitat complex perched on the edge of a crystalline mesa, surrounded by foliage that looked like the love child of a cactus and a disco ball. The air smelled perpetually of cinnamon and wet socks. Delightful. Morning, Commander Grumpy. Dr. Ellie Quinn's voice carried across the compound as she exited the lab module, her curly red hair bouncing with each step. As the team's xenobiologist, she was the only one who seemed genuinely thrilled to be stationed on this cosmic armpit. 4 years of officer training so I could babysit scientists on a planet where the local wildlife thinks humans are basically walking appetizers, Mack replied, taking a swig from his coffee mug. Remind me why I'm here again. Because you told Admiral Henderson his uniform made him look like, and I quote, a reject from a low-budget space opera? Ellie offered helpfully. Mack winced. Point taken. Where's Hoffman? As if on cue, a series of colorful expletives erupted from the power station, followed by a metallic clang and the distinctive sound of something expensive breaking. Sounds like our engineer is having a productive morning, Ellie observed with a grin. Dex Hoffman emerged moments later, his face smeared with something blue and viscous. His wild blonde hair stood straight up, possibly from the electric shock he'd clearly just received. The converter's busted again, he announced, wiping goo from his safety goggles. I swear this equipment was designed by sadists, or monkeys, or sadistic monkeys. Can you fix it? Mack asked, already knowing the answer. Dex rolled his eyes. Can fish swim? Can birds fly? Can the Vreen go 5 minutes without implying humans are an evolutionary mistake? Yes, Commander, I can fix it. I just need 6 hours, a miracle, and possibly a virgin sacrifice. A low woof interrupted their banter as a large shape bounded across the compound. Rex, the only Earth dog on X-17, skidded to a halt in front of them, his tail wagging furiously. At first glance, he resembled a German shepherd mixed with a husky, except for the slight blue shimmer to his fur when caught in direct sunlight, and eyes that sometimes glowed in the dark. An encounter with a strange energy field during their first month on the planet had changed him, though exactly how remained a mystery. There's my good boy. Ellie cooed, scratching behind Rex's ears. The dog leaned into her touch, then suddenly froze, his gaze fixed on the perimeter fence. A procession of figures approached the main gate. Vreen diplomats, if you could call them that. The indigenous species of X-17 stood nearly 7 feet tall, and with exoskeletons that resembled polished obsidian and limbs that bent in directions that made human anatomists wince. They communicated through a combination of clicks, whistles, and pheromones, which their translation devices rendered into a pompous, formal English that perfectly matched their attitudes. Ah, the welcoming committee, Mack sighed, straightening his uniform. Let's try not to start an interplanetary incident before breakfast, shall we? The Vreen regarded humans as evolutionary curiosities, at best soft, but squishy creatures with embarrassingly obvious emotional displays and a baffling attachment to their companion animals. The concept of keeping pets was particularly incomprehensible to the Vreen, who viewed all other species strictly in terms of utility. Rex growled softly as the gate slid open, admitting 3 Vreen officials. Commander Reynolds, the lead Vreen intoned, its mandibles clicking softly. We trust your sleep cycle was adequately restorative, despite your species' peculiar need for extended periods of unconsciousness. Ambassador Crail, Mack replied with forced pleasantry. Always a pleasure. What brings you to our humble outpost this morning? As the familiar diplomatic dance began, Rex's growl subsided to a low rumble. But his eyes never left the visitors, and for a brief moment, Ellie could have sworn she saw calculations happening behind those intelligent eyes, calculations no dog should be capable of making. Seriously, that's the 3rd perimeter sensor this week, Dex complained, holding up the mangled remains of what had once been sophisticated monitoring equipment. These things don't just break themselves. 3 weeks had passed since the Vreen delegation's visit, and strange incidents had become increasingly common around Outpost 42. Equipment malfunction, mysterious footprints that matched no known species in their database, and communications that dropped with suspicious regularity. Mack frowned, examining the twisted metal. Could be environmental factors. This planet's atmosphere does weird things to Earth tech. With all due respect, Commander, that's grade A premium bullshit, Dex replied. Look at these cut marks. Something sliced through titanium-reinforced casing like it was butter. That's not environmental factors, S. That's sabotage. Ellie joined them, her tablet displaying readings from the night's automated scans. Dex might be right. These energy signatures don't match anything native to X-17. And look at this, she pointed to a blurry image captured by a motion-triggered camera. That's definitely not a local life form. The image showed a shadowy figure moving with unnatural speed, its proportions vaguely Vreen-like but somehow wrong, too angular, too precise in its movements. Could be a glitch, Mack said, though his expression betrayed his doubt. A glitch that happens to coincide with missing equipment and mysterious footprints? Ellie raised an eyebrow. That's one hell of a coincidence. Rex trotted over, sniffing the broken sensor before letting out a short, sharp bark. The dog had been acting strangely lately, patrolling the perimeter at odd hours, staring into the darkness beyond the fence, ears constantly alert. Twice Ellie had found him sitting motionless outside her quarters in the middle of the night, as if standing guard. "What's up with Wonder Dog?" Dex asked, watching Rex pace anxiously. "He's been wound tighter than my Aunt Mabel at a tax audit." "I've been running some tests," Ellie admitted. "That energy field he encountered, I think it might have done more than just give his fur a pretty glow. His neural activity is off the charts, and his sensory perception seems enhanced. It's like he's processing information at a level that shouldn't be possible for a canine brain." "Are you saying our dog is turning into some kind of superintelligence?" Mack looked skeptical. "I'm saying something changed him, and he might be picking up on things we're missing," Ellie replied. Their conversation was interrupted by the compound's alert system. "Incoming visitors at the main gate," the automated voice announced. The main screen showed Ambassador Krell and 2 unfamiliar Vreen waiting outside. Unlike previous visits, they carried ceremonial staffs, essentially glorified spears, though the Vreen insisted they were cultural artifacts of diplomatic significance. "Perfect timing," Mack muttered. "Let's see what new ways they've found to insult humanity today." The meeting was tense from the start. Krell spoke in circles, making comments about the outpost's charming primitive security measures and how fortunate the humans were to have the Vreen's benevolent oversight. "The Great Council merely wishes to ensure your continued safety," Krell explained, mandibles clicking in what the humans had learned was amusement. "Your species is so vulnerable, after all. It would be tragic if something were to happen to this outpost due to your technological limitations." Was that a threat? Mack exchanged glances with Ellie, whose subtle nod confirmed she'd caught it too. "We appreciate your concern," Mack replied carefully, "but I assure you, we're quite capable of handling ourselves." Of course, Krell's translator rendered his response with synthetic smoothness. "Though I must note your perimeter seems compromised in several locations. Such oversights could invite unwanted attention from certain factions who might not share the Council's protective stance toward your kind." Rex, who had been watching from the corner, suddenly lunged forward, placing himself between the humans and the Vreen delegation. His hackles were raised, teeth bared in a silent snarl. "Control your primitive companion," one of Krell's aides hissed, taking a step back. "Rex, stand down," Mack ordered, but the dog held his ground, eyes locked on Krell's. For a moment, just a split second, something passed between them. Recognition? Challenge? Whatever it was, Krell's posture shifted almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps we should conclude our business," the ambassador said, a new edge to his synthetic voice. "The hour grows late, and we would not wish to impose upon your species' limited endurance." After the Vreen departed, An uneasy silence fell over the compound. Am I the only one who felt like we just got the alien equivalent of nice place you got here? Shame if something happened to it? Dex asked. Duck. Nope, Mack replied, watching Rex, who remained fixated on the departing Vreen, his posture still rigid with alertness. Something's coming. I can feel it. Should we call for backup? Ellie suggested. Mack shook his head. The nearest ISK outpost is 3 weeks away at best. By the time they received our message and dispatched help, whatever's going to happen will have already happened. So we're on our own, Dex concluded. Looks that way, Mack agreed, reaching down to pat Rex, who finally relaxed slightly under his touch. Let's double the security protocols tonight. And maybe keep Wonder Dog here on high alert. None of them noticed the small device Krell had discreetly attached beneath the conference table, a device now quietly transmitting every word they said back to the Vreen compound. Night fell over Outpost 42 with the eerie swiftness unique to X-17. One moment, the sky blazed with the light of 3 suns. The next, darkness descended like a theater curtain dropping. Inside the main habitat, the humans went through their evening routines. Dex finished recalibrating the backup generators, muttering about alien sabotage and catastrophic system failures with the cheerful pessimism only engineers can truly master. Ellie reviewed her latest findings on Rex's condition, frowning at anomalous readings she couldn't quite explain. The dog's DNA showed subtle alterations at the molecular level, nothing dramatic enough to change his appearance, but significant enough to potentially affect his cognitive functions. Mack completed his final security check, activating the upgraded protocols they'd implemented after the Vreen's thinly veiled threats. Proximity sensors, motion detectors, heat signatures. If anything larger than a space rat approached the compound, they'd know about it. All systems green, he announced, joining the others in the common area. Now we wait. For what exactly? Dex asked, looking up from the circuit board he was tinkering with. Alien invasion? Divine intervention? The sweet release of death? Hopefully none of the above, Mack replied. But I've been in enough tight spots to recognize when something's brewing. The Vreen are planning something. Rex paced restlessly by the main door, occasionally pressing his nose against the seam as if trying to catch a scent from outside. Should we let him out? Ellie asked. He seems agitated. Mack considered it. Might as well. He'll probably just scratch at the door all night otherwise. The perimeter's secure, and he knows not to go beyond the fence. When Ellie opened the door, Rex bolted into the darkness with unusual urgency. Through the habitat windows, they could see his silhouette as he began systematically patrolling the compound's edge, his movements precise and methodical. That's not normal dog behavior, Dex observed. He's moving like he's on a search grid. Nothing about Rex has been normal since that energy field incident, Ellie replied. By midnight Earth Standard Time, the humans had retired to their quarters. The outpost fell silent, with only the soft hum of life support systems and occasional beeps from monitoring equipment breaking the quiet. Outside, Rex continued his vigil, hidden now in the shadows between buildings. 10 miles away, in the massive crystalline structure that served as the Vreen Central Command, War Commander Zekt addressed his strike team. The humans suspect nothing, he declared, projecting a holographic map of Outpost 42. Their primitive defenses have been compromised. Red dots appeared on the map, indicating the locations of disabled sensors and blind spots in their security grid. Our intelligence confirms they possess no weapons beyond standard-issue sidearms, continued Zekt, mandibles clicking with contempt. Their reaction times are sluggish, their senses dull, and their physical forms absurdly fragile. The assembled warriors, 20 of the Vreen's most elite soldiers, clicked their approval. This would be a simple operation, barely worthy of their skills. Some seemed almost disappointed by the lack of challenge. Remember, Zekt cautioned, we are not sanctioned by the Council for this action. Ambassador Krall has assured us they will claim ignorance if we are discovered. This is an unsanctioned operation, but one that serves the greater good of the Vreen Dominion. What about the animal? Asked one warrior, referring to Rex. The one they call Dog? Zekt's mandibles clattered in the Vreen equivalent of laughter. A domesticated creature with limited intelligence? It poses no threat. If it interferes, eliminate it. The human's peculiar attachment to it will only add to their distress when they realize how utterly powerless they are. The plan was finalized, a three-pronged assault under cover of darkness. Team Alpha would disable the remaining security systems. Team Beta would secure the perimeter. Team Gamma, led by Zekt himself, would enter the habitat and subdue the humans. By dawn, Outpost 42 would be under Vreen control, its technology and resources appropriated for the Dominion's use. What none of them realized was that their entire conversation was being observed not through any technological means, but through the enhanced senses of a creature they had dismissed as insignificant. Rex sat motionless in the shadows outside the Vreen compound, his enhanced hearing picking up every word, his modified brain processing and analyzing the information with an intelligence far beyond that of any Earth canine. When the war party began their preparations, he slipped away, racing back to Outpost 42. Not to warn the sleeping humans, there wasn't time for that, but to prepare. The Vreen had made a critical error in their calculations. They had accounted for human weaknesses, human technologies, human limitations. They had not accounted for Rex. At precisely 0300 hours, Team Alpha of the Vreen Strike Force reached the perimeter of Outpost 42. Moving with practiced efficiency, they deployed electromagnetic pulse devices at key junction points along the security grid. Small, disc-shaped objects adhered to control panels and sensor arrays, their internal mechanisms counting down silently. Disruptors in position. The team leaders subvocalized through their neural comm system. Initiating synchronized shutdown in 3, 2, 1. A series of soft pops echoed in the night as the devices activated, sending targeted pulses through the outpost's security network. Inside the main habitat, monitoring screens flickered briefly before displaying an all-clear status, the systems now feeding false data that showed normal operations. Perimeter security neutralized, the leader reported, proceeding to Phase 2. Behind them, Team Beta fanned out along the compound's edge, establishing a containment perimeter to prevent escape. Their exoskeletons, coated with light-absorbing compounds, blended perfectly with the night. Each warrior carried non-lethal suppression weapons. The humans were to be captured, not killed. The Vreen needed them alive for questioning about Earth's defenses and technologies. War Commander Zekt, leading Team Gamma, gave the signal to advance. Remember, the creatures are physically weak but unpredictable. Subdue them quickly and secure the central habitat. The strike team moved like shadows across the compound, their movements betraying centuries of evolutionary perfection and military training. By all accounts, it was a textbook infiltration, flawless, precise, and completely undetected. Or so they thought. The first indication that something was wrong came when Team Alpha's rearguard suddenly went silent on the comm. Zekt paused, mandibles clicking in irritation. "Rearguard, report," he ordered. Silence. "Perhaps a communication malfunction," his lieutenant suggested. Zekt wasn't convinced. "Team Beta, send a scout to investigate." 2 minutes later, the scout also went silent. "Curious," Zekt murmured. "The humans should be unaware of our presence. Their sensors are compromised." A soft sound behind them made the entire team whirl around, weapons raised. Standing in the open, seemingly unconcerned about being spotted, was Rex. The dog's posture was relaxed, almost casual, as he regarded the heavily armed Vreen warriors with what could only be described as amused interest. One of the warriors chittered softly. "It's just the primitive companion animal." "Eliminate it," Zekt ordered dismissively. Quietly. 2 warriors broke formation, approaching Rex with non-lethal suppressors aimed. The dog waited until they were 10 paces away, then with a burst of speed that defied physics simply wasn't there anymore. The warriors froze, confused. A soft whine of air was the only warning before something slammed into the first warrior from above, sending him crashing to the ground with enough force to crack his exoskeleton. Before the second could react, that same something swept his legs out from under him and delivered a precisely targeted blow to a nerve cluster at the base of his cranial plate. Both warriors lay motionless, rendered unconscious by attacks that had happened too quickly to track. Rex stood over them, still appearing completely relaxed, now watching the main group with what was unmistakably a challenge in his eyes. "Impossible," Zect hissed. "No Earth creature possesses such combat abilities." The truth dawned on him too late. It's a trap. Full assault mode now. The remaining warriors charged forward, abandoning stealth for overwhelming force. Rex waited until the last possible moment before moving, and when he did, it was with a grace and precision that no Earth canine had ever displayed. He flowed between laser blasts like water, his movements anticipating each attack before it was launched. He seemed to defy gravity, using the walls of buildings and even the warriors' own bodies as launch points. Each strike was precisely calculated, targeting vulnerable joints in the Vreen exoskeletons or pressure points in their nervous systems. Within minutes, 5 more warriors lay unconscious, while Rex remained untouched. Zect, watching in disbelief, activated his emergency beacon. "All teams converge on my position. The companion animal is the primary threat. I repeat, the dog is the primary threat." The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on him, calling for reinforcements against what should have been a harmless pet. But as he watched Rex systematically dismantle his elite warriors with almost contemptuous ease, Zect realized they had catastrophically underestimated their opponent. This was no ordinary dog. This was something else entirely. As Team Beta rushed to respond to Zect's call, the main habitat's lights suddenly blazed to life. The humans were awake, and judging by the alarms now blaring across the compound, they were aware of the intrusion. The element of surprise was gone. The carefully planned operation was unraveling. And the creature responsible for it all stood in the center of the compound, tail wagging slightly, seemingly inviting the next wave of attackers to try their luck. "What the hell is happening out there?" Mack shouted, scrambling into his uniform as emergency klaxons wailed throughout the habitat. The security monitors showed utter chaos. Vreen warriors scattered across the compound, some prone on the ground, others engaged in what appeared to be a desperate battle against Rex. "Rex. Are you seeing this?" Dex asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and awe. "That's our dog taking down alien commandos like he's the canine John Wick." Ellie stared at the screens, her scientific mind racing to process what she was witnessing. The energy field must have altered him more fundamentally than I realized. His movements, his reaction time, they're beyond anything biologically possible for Canis familiaris. On the monitors, Rex executed a maneuver that defied both gravity and common sense. A Vreen warrior fired what looked like a plasma weapon, the energy bolt sizzling through the air directly at the dog. Instead of dodging, Rex somehow caught the bolt in his mouth, actually caught it, like it was a thrown ball, then spat it back at the warrior's weapon, causing it to explode in a shower of sparks. "Did he just?" Mack couldn't even finish the sentence. "Yep," Dex confirmed, watching wide-eyed. "Our dog just ate a laser and spat it back out. Totally normal Tuesday." The compound's external speakers crackled to life with the transmission from outside. "Human outpost. Surrender immediately. Your defenses are compromised, resistance is futile, and your companion animal will be neutralized." Mack grabbed the comm unit. "This is Commander Reynolds. You are conducting an unauthorized assault on an ISK outpost. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." Hysterical laughter came over the speakers. "Consequences? You are 3 unarmed humans with primitive technology. What consequences could you possibly?" The transmission cut off with a startled yelp, followed by sounds of struggle and what might have been a dog growling. "I'm going to go out on a limb and say Rex just found the guy with the megaphone," Dex observed. Outside, the battle had escalated. Vreen reinforcements had arrived, at least 20 more warriors, these armed with heavier weapons and what appeared to be specialized containment gear. They had formed a perimeter around Rex, clearly having identified him as the primary threat. "We need to help him," Ellie said, grabbing a portable scanner. "They're going to overwhelm him with numbers." "With what?" Mack demanded. "We're a scientific outpost. Our most dangerous weapon is the laser cutter Dex uses to trim his toenails. Hey, Dex protested. I use that for delicate circuit work, I'll have you know. Not the point. Mack snapped. We're facing an armed alien strike force, and our only defender is a dog with whatever the hell is happening to him. On the monitors, the Vreen had indeed managed to surround Rex. They fired some sort of energy net, which expanded in midair, descending toward the dog. For a moment it seemed they had him trapped. Then something extraordinary happened. Rex's form seemed to blur, his outline becoming indistinct. The net passed through him, as if he weren't solid matter. In the next instant he was solid again, leaping through the air to take down 3 warriors simultaneously. Did he just phase shift? Ellie whispered. That's quantum mechanics at a macroscopic level. It should be impossible. Add it to the list of impossible things happening tonight, Dex replied. Right after dog using tactical combat techniques and dog eating energy bolts for breakfast. A massive explosion rocked the compound as the Vreen deployed what appeared to be their heavy artillery, a vehicle that resembled a tank if tanks were designed by crystal spiders. It leveled its main cannon at Rex, who stood his ground, watching it with what could only be described as disdain. We need to get out there, Mack decided, heading for the habitat's airlock. Rex needs backup. With all due respect, Commander, Dex said, pointing at the screen where Rex had just somersaulted over the tank, somehow causing its targeting systems to lock onto its own troops. I think we'd just get in his way. Another explosion, this one followed by the distinctive sound of crystalline structures shattering. On the screen, the tank was now upside down, its crew scrambling to escape as Rex methodically disabled their weapons. Through the habitat windows, they could see Ambassador Krall had arrived with what appeared to be his personal guard. The ambassador watched in horror as his carefully planned operation disintegrated before his eyes. This isn't possible. They heard him hiss through the external mics. It's a simple Earth canine. They're barely sentient. As if in direct response to this insult, Rex turned to face Krall, his eyes glowing with an unearthly blue light. For a moment, dog and ambassador stared at each other across the battlefield. Then Rex's form blurred again, that same quantum phase shift, and he simply vanished. Where did he? Mack started. Then Rex reappeared directly in front of Krall, manifesting from thin air, not 3 feet from the ambassador. The Vreen's personal guard reacted instantly, forming a protective circle around their leader and firing a coordinated volley of suppression beams. What happened next defied explanation. Rex seemed to split into multiple versions of himself, 5 identical dogs, each moving independently yet in perfect coordination. They weaved through the guard formation, systematically disarming and disabling each warrior with surgical precision. Within seconds, Krall stood alone, his guards unconscious around him. The 5 Rexes converged, merging back into a single entity that now sat calmly before the ambassador, tail wagging slightly as if to say, "Your move." Krall, evidently recognizing defeat, slowly lowered himself into a posture the humans recognized as formal surrender. Throughout the compound, the remaining Vreen warriors followed suit, deactivating their weapons and assuming submission postures. Did we just win? Dex asked incredulously. I think, Ellie replied slowly, watching Rex's calm, almost smug demeanor. Our dog just won. Dawn broke over Outpost 42, illuminating a scene that resembled the aftermath of the world's most one-sided bar fight. Unconscious Vreen warriors lay scattered across the compound. Their vehicles and weapons had been systematically disabled, but notably not destroyed. The damage was precise, focused on neutralizing the threat without causing unnecessary harm. Commander Reynolds stood at the compound's central plaza, facing Ambassador Krall, who was flanked by his few remaining conscious guards. The ambassador's usual arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. I trust we have an understanding now, Mack said, struggling to maintain a diplomatic tone despite the circumstances. This unauthorized attack was a violation of at least 17 interspecies treaties. The Vreen Great Council will deny all knowledge of this operation, Krall replied stiffly. It was a rogue action. Of course it was, Mack nodded, not bothering to hide his skepticism. Just like I'm sure it's pure coincidence that the leader of said rogue operation happens to be your head of military intelligence. Or Commander Zecht, now conscious but restrained, chittered something that the translation devices rendered as "this humiliation will not stand." Rex, sitting calmly beside Ellie, tilted his head at the war commander, his expression almost pitying. "I'd reconsider that position if I were you," Dex suggested cheerfully. "Unless you want another round with our security chief here." He nodded toward Rex, who wagged his tail once. "We will withdraw," Krell conceded, avoiding looking directly at Rex. "Our wounded will be collected. This incident need not escalate further." "Glad we understand each other," Mack agreed. "Though I will be filing a full report with ISK headquarters." As the Vreen gathered their unconscious comrades and began their retreat, Ellie knelt beside Rex, her scanner hovering over his now ordinary-looking form. The blue shimmer that had been occasionally visible in his fur was now a constant glow. His eyes, once simply intelligent, now held a depth and awareness that was unmistakably beyond anything an Earth dog should possess. "What are you?" she whispered, not really expecting an answer. To her shock, and judging by their expressions, Mack's and Dex's as well, a voice replied directly in her mind, "I am a friend." Rex's mouth hadn't moved, but the words were unmistakable, not heard with ears, but experienced directly in thought. "Telepathy." "No. You can communicate telepathically?" Ellie gasped, her scientific mind racing with implications. "Only now that the transformation is complete," came the reply. "The energy field you discovered was not accidental. It was a catalyst designed to accelerate my adaptation." "Adaptation?" Dex repeated. "You mean you're not actually a dog?" A sensation like gentle amusement flooded their minds. "I am and am not. This form was chosen for its compatibility with your species. My actual nature is difficult to express in your conceptual framework." "You're an alien intelligence?" Mack realized, "using a dog's body as a, what? A vessel?" "More a partnership," Rex corrected, "this being volunteered. We are now a hybrid, the loyalty and sensory capabilities of Canis familiaris enhanced by my cognitive functions." "But why?" Ellie asked. "Why come here? Why disguise yourself as our pet?" The answer flowed into their minds with gentle clarity: to observe, to understand. My kind has watched the development of sentient species across many worlds for millennia. We particularly focus on emerging spacefaring civilizations at this critical juncture in their development. Images filled their minds, glimpses of other worlds, other species, other observers like Rex integrated into different host bodies appropriate to each culture. "We had been observing the Vreen for some time," Rex continued. "Their technological advancement has outpaced their ethical development. When your outpost was established, I requested reassignment. Humans interested me." "Because we're such a threat?" Mack asked, a defensive edge to his voice. "Because you are not," came the surprising answer. "Despite your technological limitations compared to the Vreen, you display remarkable capacity for empathy, cooperation, and forming bonds across species lines. You took in what you believed was a simple animal, cared for it, treated it with affection and respect. The Vreen, despite their advancements, view all other life forms as either threats or resources." "So all this time, you've been what?" "Studying us?" Dex asked. "Learning from you," Rex corrected. "And as became necessary, protecting you. My kind does not interfere lightly, but we make exceptions when the alternative is extinction of promising young species." "Are you going to leave now?" Ellie asked, a note of sadness in her voice. Despite the revelations, she had grown genuinely attached to Rex. The mental equivalent of a warm smile touched their minds. "My mission continues. The Vreen will return eventually, though perhaps with a new appreciation for humanity's capabilities. And there is still much I can learn from you. If you'll have me, of course." Mack looked at his companions, then back at Rex the dog, who wasn't just a dog, the guardian they hadn't known they had. I think what we've learned today, he said slowly, is that humans and dogs have always been better together than apart. Why change a winning formula? Rex's tail wagged, a thoroughly dog-like gesture despite the cosmic intelligence behind it. Excellent. Though I should warn you, I still expect belly rubs. Some aspects of canine existence are surprisingly agreeable. As the last Vreen transport disappeared over the horizon, the humans and their not-so-ordinary pet returned to the habitat. The Outpost's log was updated with a carefully worded account of an unauthorized Vreen incursion, repelled through combined human and canine security measures. No mention was made of quantum phase shifting, telepathy, or the true nature of their four-legged companion. Some truths, Mack decided, were best kept between friends. Besides, who would believe that humanity's first contact with an advanced alien intelligence had come disguised as man's best friend? In the coming days, encoded messages would arrive from ISK headquarters, questioning the highly irregular incident report. Diplomatic channels would buzz with Vreen denials and accusations. Through it all, life at Outpost 42 would continue with a new understanding. They weren't alone in the universe, and neither were they undefended. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and possibly a soft spot for humans and their pets. After all, as the ancient saying went, who's a good boy? In Rex's case, the answer was, a far better friend than humanity ever realized.